Hi everybody, this is Max with Enlight Automotive. Today we got a 2015 Dodge Charger and we're going to swap over the factory headlights, which are a 9012 HIR bulb. It's still a halogen. It's a little bit more advanced halogen, but it's still not adequate, and we're going to go ahead and put one of our Enlight Xenon HID systems in this vehicle. Let's take a look at the Enlight HID kit for the 2015 Dodge Charger. Now this kit is specifically set up for the 2015 Charger. It's not just a generic 9012 kit. What it's going to come with is two Enlight Alpha 35 watt ballasts. These are very high quality, very reliable, rapid start ballasts. They have a very short startup time, especially when paired with our second generation ARC series bulbs. These are really nice. We just got these about a week ago, and they're definitely a step change in both brightness. They're about 20% brighter than our previous generation ARC bulbs, and they start up even faster than the previous ones. So in addition to those components, it's also going to come with our Alpha series relay harness. We'll go into more details about this guy later, but it's a very high quality relay harness. It's got thick 14 gauge power wires. It's got a fully waterproof relay pack, waterproof seals everywhere. It's a very nice piece. And it's also going to come with a CAN bus decoder module. This is a very robust, beefy unit, and we'll show you how to install this set into this 2015 Charger. First thing you need to do is hit the hood latch inside the vehicle, and then under here, just kind of on the right side of this this fold here, there's a little tab in there. Push it over to the left side, just like that, and then lift up to expose the engine bay, just so you can see what this lever looks like. You just push this guy to the side and lift up on the hood. That's how you detach it. So just to give an overview of where we're going to be working, on the driver's side of the vehicle, in order to access the headlight bulb, in order to get the factory one out and then get the HID bulb in, it's located in this region here, and to get access to it, we're actually going to remove the air box. That gives us more room to work. And on the passenger side, luckily, there really isn't anything obstructing the way. It's a little finicky to get to, but you can see that the headlight cap is back there. And these are the two key areas that we're going to be working. We're also going to install the relay harness, which will tap into this region here. To start off with, to remove the airbox, you're going to need a flathead screwdriver to loosen this clamp right here, and then you're going to need either a flathead or a Phillips screwdriver to loosen 1, 2, 3, just 3 screws there, and then this will pop up. So I'm going to loosen those. After you've loosened those screws and also loosen this clamp up, don't take this out all the way, just loosen it up enough so you can wiggle this off here. And then you should be able to just tilt this up kind of out of the way there. And now we got to remove this lower part of the airbox. Next step, take an 8mm socket, something like that, and remove this bolt here. After you removed this bolt, just gently lift up on this airbox here. There's just some rubber grommets down there that it's held in by, and then all you got to do is lift it out, just like that. The whole thing comes out. It's very easy, and then just set that aside. Now that you've got that removed, you can see that we've opened up access to the dust cap back here. So this is a dust cap. Once we remove this, you'll see that the bulb is behind there. And to remove this, all you got to do is, you see this tab that's sticking out here? This one is sticking out further than the other ones, that we can get a little bit of a grip on it. You want to twist it counterclockwise, just like you're loosening a bolt or a nut, and lift. So in this case, you want to lift up. Might be a little stiff. Lift up, slide the cap off just like that. And here, you can see that we've exposed the bulb. So now to take the bulb out, all you got to do is put your finger on this tab here, just lift up gently, and then pull back at the same time. Might take a little bit of wiggling. There you go. So that tab is this black piece right here. Just gently lift up with it, or lift up on it with your finger. Don't pull super hard or else you'll break it. And then slide this connector off the back of the bulb, and then get your fingers on the bulb, twist it counterclockwise, again, just like you're loosening a nut or a bolt. It might be a little stiff, and it comes out easily. So here on the passenger side of the vehicle, it's going to be the same thing. You can barely see the headlight cap down here. Here's that tab that's sticking out, or the rib that's sticking out. And in this case, you're going to push down to rotate it counterclockwise. I take a little bit of pressure and then just gently wiggle it out to bring it out like that. Oops. Now, just like the driver's side of the vehicle, you can see there's the bulb in there, hopefully. There we go. And you're going to lift up on that tab, which is on the right side of the screen, and slide the connector off just like we did on the driver's side. Once you've got the connector off, again, just this, you're going to have to push the connector towards the fender, or the passenger side fender of the vehicle this time, just because of the way the bulb's oriented. And then you can reach in there, twist it counterclockwise, just like we did last time. This one's a little stiff here. Let's see if I can get my fingers on it. Twist it counterclockwise, and the bulb comes out. Now the next step is to prepare the dust cap and the bulb so that we can install this on the driver's side of the vehicle. Now to do this, you're going to need a stepper bit, or I call this a Christmas tree bit. Basically what this is a drill bit that's got several different diameters on it in this tapered fashion. And what you need to do is drill a 25 millimeter diameter hole in the very center of this cap, or equivalent to a 1-inch hole in the center of this cap here. And what that's going to allow us to do is feed the harness for the bulb through this hole and then seal it with this blue grommet. So basically what that looks like is, after you drill the hole from this side, or on this side, you're going to take this end of the harness and feed it through like that. And then once you're done, you basically line up this inner groove here. You can see the slots in this rubber grommet, or the silicone grommet, and that wedges in between this face here and the inner face of the dust cap. Here you can see that I fed the bulb harness through each of the headlight caps, and this is what it should look like when you're done. Now you got to make sure that you get the direction of this right. So this is the outside of the headlight cap, or the one that faces the engine bay, if you will. And this is the side that faces the inside of the headlight housing. And you want the bulb, obviously, to be inside the headlight housing so it can connect to the socket. Now this connector here, this will plug into the gray connector that went into the factory bulb. And effectively what we're doing is we're taking the power from inside the headlight socket to outside the headlight socket, where it will then connect to the ballasts, which are what these two blue connectors are for here, and the relay harness. So same thing on both sides, and you have one side of the rubber grommet, or of the silicone grommet, on the outside, and the other side, or the other flap, is on the inside, just like that. So once you've got the dust cap mounted to the harness, I've left it off in this particular example just so it's easier for you guys to see what's going on down here. Just carefully guide the glass bulb into the socket. Just be careful when you're doing this, that way you don't crack the glass or put too much pressure on anything. And then what you need to do is rotate the bulb here until you get the tabs to line up just like that. You can see that all three prongs are lined up there, hopefully. And then rotate it clockwise like you're tightening a screw until it locks into place. And it's nice and secure in there, just like that. So once you've got the bulb installed in the socket here, this factory connector is not going to be used since we're on the driver's side of the vehicle. So you can just tuck that away. And this connector here will also not be used, so you can go ahead and tuck that into the headlight housing there. And once you have the dust cap mounted on this harness here, from here what you would do is take the dust cap, align it with the opening here in the headlight housing, and then rotate it clockwise to tighten it down and secure it. There's something slightly different that we're going to do on the passenger side, and this factory headlight connector is now going to be used, and it is going to connect to this plug here. Now this will serve as the input to the HID relay harness, but there is something to pay attention to, and that is the polarity. It is not clear which wires here are positive and negative. For whatever reason, Dodge made them both black, but we're going to do trial and error on this. So just pick an orientation. You'll see that this plug here has got locking tabs on both sides, so it's compatible both ways. Just plug it in one way for now, and then we'll check it later to see if it's correct, like this here. And once again, we may flip this around later, but we'll check that once we put the relay harness in. And once this step would be complete, you could just tuck this nicely away inside the headlight housing like that, and then you would have your headlight cap here on the rubber grommet, and then secure that in place. But before you actually secure the headlight cap in place, we're going to check the polarity. Now the next step is to use the supplied bolts and brackets and prepare the ballasts. What you'll do is you'll grab a ballast, flip it over like this. These three holes will come pre-tapped. The threads will match the bolts that it comes with. And what you're going to do is set up the brackets just like this. Set up the bracket so these slots align with the holes here, and then use the supplied bolts and a washer to secure the bracket to the ballast. You can either use a Phillips screwdriver or a 10mm socket to do that. Once you get everything secured, it should look just like this. Now, there's not one sole way to mount the brackets. I'm just going to pick one location on each side that I found relatively convenient. You're free to mount the ballast anywhere that you want that's within reach, as long as it's away from any extreme heat sources such as the exhaust manifolds, and make sure that they're mounted away from any moving parts. So in the orientation that I'm going to mount these brackets, you can see that they're both mounted in the same orientation here. Now here on the passenger side of the vehicle, in order to mount the ballast, we're actually going to use this stud here. So what you're looking at, there's a nut and then there's a stud, and the stud is securing this ground cable on there. And what we're going to do is this is going to double as both a mount for the ballast bracket, and it's also going to serve as a ground. So I'm going to mount the ballast on here by using a 10mm, either a 10mm socket or 10mm wrench to loosen up this nut. I'm going to put the ballast bracket on here, and I'm going to leave the nut off for now, or just leave it slightly loose, because later on when we put the relay harness in, we're going to put the ground there. So here what I've done, again, I've just loosened this nut here, and I've used the bracket that we mounted on the ballast here and put it on the very bottom side. So the bracket is in between the chassis and the ground cable, which is on here, and then the nut goes on top. And I've just left the nut loose for now, and that's where we're going to put the ground for the relay harness. So you can see that this is tucked away nicely here, and from this point, what you can do is find the cables that are coming off the back of the HID bulbs, which look like these guys here. So plug these blue connectors in to these black connectors on the ballast. So they only go in one way. It's pretty hard to mess them up. So once you get these guys connected, you can see they should look just like this. This is the high voltage output from the ballast, which are the black wires, going into the high voltage input side of the bulbs, which are the blue connectors. And for now, what you can do, you can leave these cables loose for now. What we want to do is we want to connect everything together, make sure everything works, and then we'll come back later and tidy everything up with zip ties and secure everything to make sure nothing's moving around. Here on the driver's side of the vehicle, I'm going to select this bolt here as the mounting location for the other ballast. So I'm going to take that bolt out. I'm going to secure this ballast just like that. Here's what it looks like when it's done. You can see that this is nice and tight here, and this leaves just enough clearance for the air box to be put back. Again, once you get to this step, you can take the black connectors, which are the output, the high voltage output of the ballast, locate the blue connectors on the output of the bulb, connect those together just like the other step on the other side. Now the next part of the installation is to put the relay harness in. Now the relay harness may scare some people because it looks like there's a lot of wires, a lot of connections. It's really not that difficult. It's very simple. We'll walk through all the connections, that way you know where everything goes. Now this particular component here, this is the relay itself. Essentially what a relay is, it's a fancy switch. What this does is it takes the input signal from the factory headlight connector. Now if you remember, over here on the passenger side, we identified this guy here, which we plugged in earlier. What this is going to do is take the signal from the factory headlight connector, which is on the left side here, send it through the bulb harness. You can follow the connection out the back, out to this connector here. Now this connector will essentially send a signal through this cable here to turn on the relay, and then this powers the rest of the relay harness to turn on the HID system itself. Now what we have over here, this is a CAN bus module. It's essentially a capacitor with a few other integrated components, and this moves out the signal coming from the car's factory headlight connector into the relay pack to prevent it from buzzing and clicking. So what you'll do is you'll take this component, line up these cables here, plug that guy in, and the other end of this CAN bus module, you'll see that there's a positive and a negative here. This is what we were talking about in terms of polarity. We want to make sure that we actually get a plus 12 volts into the positive side and the ground into the negative side. And this will become obvious later on once we try to start this up. If it's reversed, then it won't work. So just to clarify, this end of the CAN bus connector will connect to this connector, which is on the back side of the bulb, or the HID bulb harness. Now moving down the relay harness, we've already covered that guy. There's a couple other connections. So this red cable here, this will attach to the positive terminal located here, indicated by the big red plus, couldn't be more obvious. So this ring terminal will attach in there. You can see that there's a nice fully waterproof fuse holder. And this cable provides power to the entire relay harness and also powers the ballast. And this is the ground. This ground will connect to this same location here, which we mounted the ballast. That's why we left this nut loose. What we're going to do is we're going to throw the ground from the relay harness on that same factory ground location. Also on this side of the harness is the ballast input power connector that looks like this plug here. And what we will do is take this connector and plug it into the input of the ballast, which is, I'll find it here somewhere. Which is this guy right here. Now, moving down to the rest of the harness, there's just one long cable which will stretch over to the passenger side of the vehicle. Let's see. And this long cable here is just to power the other ballast on the on the driver's side of the vehicle. And this will connect to the ballast, and you also notice that there is another ground cable. Now, this relay harness is set up in such a way where there's two grounds, one on the driver's side of the vehicle, which will connect right here, this is another good factory ground location. It's just another 10mm nut on a stud. You can take that off to put the ground there. And this ground is also tied through the relay harness back to the primary ground, which is right here. This is a little messy now, but once we make all the connections, it'll make a lot more sense. So let's start off with the positive terminal here. First, to take this cap off, just take your thumb or your finger and push on this tab here. Hopefully you can see that flexing. Push on it and just lift it up. Comes off very easily. Now, you're gonna need a socket to loosen up the nut on this stud. And then what we will do is just make a slight tweak to this red cable here. That way we can fit it onto this large stud. Now you can use a cutting tool like this, or you can use a side cutter or something to just cut off one end of the ring terminal here. That way it makes a U shape. This is a very large stud. You're going to need a 13mm socket, and just loosen this a little bit. You don't need to take it all the way off. But with this modification here, now all we need to do is slide this ring terminal underneath the nut here, and then we can tighten the nut down again with the 13mm socket. Now once you've got that secured, you can close this cap again. If you want to make this a little easier to close, what you can do is use a file or something to just file a little slot into the side here to give some extra clearance for the wire, but you can close it without too much trouble. And as you'll see here, there's a black bracket, there's a factory bracket here that just serves as a nice little mounting location for the fuse. You can use one of the supplied zip ties to secure this fuse to the black bracket here. Now, I went ahead and made another connection here that we talked about, and this cable from the relay harness, it's got two black wires on it. Remember this nut here, which we left loose, I just took that off and put the ring terminal. You didn't need to make any modifications for this ring terminal, everything fit. And then tighten up this nut to secure the ring terminal against this ground here. Now the next connections to make are the relay harness connector to the ballast input, which is this guy here, and also the CAN bus module to the backside of the HID bulb harness. Now again, this looks like it's in the correct orientation, but the actual polarity is dependent on how we plugged in the previous connector here, which we talked about. This guy. Again, I've left off the headlight caps just so I can show you guys what's going on here. And what we will test later on is to check to see if whether this connector is in the right direction. So once you've made those connections, then we'll move over to the the driver's side of the vehicle. Now the long cable on the relay harness, what you can do is here from the passenger side, feed the long cable on the back side of the radiator core support here. You can see that you can tuck it underneath here, and you can wedge the cable in between these plastic support brackets for these lines here, and tuck it underneath, route it across. You see, you can tuck it underneath again here. And again, you can use the supplied zip ties to secure it to these lines here if you wish. Bring it around, bring it across. Now we're over here on the driver's side of the vehicle, routing that cable over to the input side of the driver side ballast here. And I've also taken the ground wire, which is this guy here, that's coming off this connector, and attached it to this factory ground location here. And then once you get that in there, tighten it down and secure that. Now at this point what you want to do is test everything. So just leave all of the wires kind of loose and hanging, and go inside the vehicle and turn on the lights to make sure that everything is working properly. Here you can see we got everything working, and it looks like we got lucky with the polarity on that one connector. It's working the first time. And that looks beautiful. Now, just as a refresher, if you had plugged everything in, tested it, and lights did not come on, you would want to come back to the passenger side of the vehicle here, locate this connector here. Again, that's the factory headlight plug there, and then the harness on the back of the HID bulb here. Flip this connector around 180 degrees, plug it back in. This will reverse the polarity, and everything should work correctly from there. Now at this point, what you want to do is make all of your connections secure all the wires so nothing is moving around. This is kind of a nice location to mount the relay pack. You can use a nut and a bolt or a zip ties and secure it to this factory bracket here. And then use zip ties to secure all of the other wiring and connections. Make sure you secure the ballast igniters such that nothing is moving around or flopping around. Double check that all of your nuts and bolts are tight. Make sure you get this connection tight. Make sure your positive terminal connection is tight here. Secure the fuse holder. Same thing on the passenger side. You want to make sure that you get this bolt tight here. Everything else is tight and secure. You can use zip ties to secure all of these connections together. Make sure that you put the factory dust caps back on, and those are secured. And once everything is done, you can put the airbox back in. And now you want to make sure that when you remove the airbox that this little rubber piece doesn't fall out. And if it does fall out, pick it up and make sure you put it back in this hole. Once you've got the HID system working and secure, you want to put the factory airbox back in. Down in this area, make sure that none of these cables are hanging over this opening here, and also make sure that none of the cables for the HID system are in this area, or else it'll interfere with putting the airbox back in. And so grab this guy, gently lower it into place, and you want to make sure that that opening lines up with the opening on the airbox. Push it down. It should sit into that rubber connector that's on the other side here. Take your the bolt here, get it lined up. You can start that by hand, and then take the other end of the airbox, or the top of the airbox. Now to put this guy in, there's 3 tabs there. You want to make sure that you line the tabs up, slide them under the openings in this bar here, and just press it firmly down. You see that there's just enough clearance here for the ballast. It looks like it just fits. And then take your there's 3 screws that look like this. One goes here, another one goes here, and the other one goes here. So use your Phillips or flathead screwdriver to secure those down. And also, don't forget the air intake. You want to slide that guy on, swiggle it back and forth. Make sure that you get this tab here, this rubber silicone tab, to line up in this slot on the top of the airbox. Use your flathead screwdriver, tighten down the clamp, and that's it. One more thing to pay attention to is how fast the startup time is on this HID system. These start much faster than traditional HID systems or cheaper ones. They start almost as fast as OEM systems would from, say, BMW or Audi. They reach 75% brightness within 2 seconds. And you can see that they change from the initial warm-up color, which has a slight blue tint to it, to white very rapidly. And most importantly, they are extremely bright, much brighter than the factory halogens. This particular setup here will give you about 3,100 lumens. If you're interested in purchasing this kit, go to www.enlightauto.com. Go to the Browse by Vehicle section, look under Dodge and then find the 2015 Dodge Charger.